The massive crystal chamber hummed with deadly energy as High Mystic Kelrin pressed his 4 hands against the control panel. His purple skin had turned pale with fear. The Vorthak horde was less than 3 hours away from breaking through their last defense line. His people were going to die unless he did something now. "Are you sure about this?" asked his assistant Vextai. Her large eyes showed the same fear that every Zenthari felt today. "The champion's call has not been used for over 1,000 years. The old texts say it is dangerous." Kelrin looked at the holographic display showing the advancing enemy ships. Dark red vessels moved like hungry beasts toward their home world. The Vorthak had already destroyed 6 Zenthari colonies. Their warriors ate the flesh of their enemies and wore their bones as trophies. There would be no mercy if they reached the capital. "We have no choice," Kelrin said. His voice shook despite his effort to stay calm. "Start the ritual. We need warriors who can fight the Vorthak and win." The other mystics in the chamber began their work. Ancient symbols glowed on the walls as they channeled power through the crystal formations. The air itself seemed to bend and twist as reality began to crack. They were trying to reach beyond their dimension to call forth legendary warriors from the void. But Kelrin was rushing. Fear made his calculations sloppy. The coordinates that should have pointed to the warrior spirits of legend instead pointed somewhere else entirely. Somewhere far away across the galaxy to a small blue planet that most species had never heard of. Jake Morrison was running through the forest during military training when the world exploded in white light around him. One moment he was leading his squad through a practice mission. The next moment he was falling through what looked like a tunnel made of stars. The Marine sergeant tried to shout orders to his men, but no sound came out in the strange space between worlds. Lisa Park had just finished treating a car accident victim when the same light grabbed her. She was walking out of the emergency room, thinking about getting some sleep after her 12-hour shift. The doctor tried to grab onto something as she was pulled upward, but her hands found only empty air. Danny Rodriguez was climbing a ladder toward a burning building when the portal opened beneath him. The firefighter had been responding to a house fire when reality decided to kidnap him. His heavy equipment disappeared as he tumbled through the dimensional rift. Kate Williams was checking on hikers in the national park when the light took her too. The park ranger had been following, a trail that led deep into the mountains. She managed to grab her radio before the portal swallowed her, but it went silent as she fell between worlds. 4 humans crashed onto the crystal floor of the Zenthari ritual chamber. They landed hard but got up quickly, looking around in confusion and alarm. Jake immediately moved into a defensive position. Lisa checked herself for injuries. Danny looked for exits. Kate tried to make sense of what she was seeing. The Zenthari mystic screamed. It was not the reaction the humans expected. The aliens looked at them with pure terror. Some of the mystics fainted. Others ran for the exits. Kelrin himself stumbled, backward, his 4 arms shaking as he pointed at the humans. "What are those things?" Vextai whispered. "They look like demons." The humans did look strange to alien eyes. Their skin was covered in tiny holes that leaked salt water. Their mouths were full of white bone spikes used for tearing flesh. They moved with the deadly grace of predators, and their eyes seemed to look right through the alien souls. "Where are we?" Jake demanded. His military training kept him alert despite the impossible situation. "Who are you people?" The aliens did not understand his words, but his tone was clear enough. This creature was asking questions and expecting answers. The mystics had summoned something that thought it had the right to make demands. Kelrin tried to activate the communication device with hands that would not stop shaking. The universal translator would let them speak to these monsters, but did he really want to know what they were thinking? "We meant to call warrior spirits," he said when the device finally worked. "We are under attack. We need help." Jake looked around the chamber, taking in the advanced technology and alien architecture. The other humans moved closer to him, forming a protective group without being told. It was pure human instinct to work together when facing the unknown. "You brought us here?" Lisa asked. Her medical mind was already working, studying the aliens and noting how fragile they seemed. Their bones looked thin, their skin looked soft, and they seemed to have trouble breathing in their own air. "It was an accident," Vextai admitted. "We were trying to summon champions from legend. Instead, we got you." Danny laughed, which made several aliens jump in fear. "Champions? Lady, I'm just a firefighter from Ohio. I put out fires and rescue cats from trees." "You come from a death world," Kelrin said. His voice was full of awe and terror. "The readings are clear. Your planet would kill most life in the galaxy. How do you survive there?" Kate looked confused. "Earth? Earth is beautiful. It has forests and mountains and oceans. It has life everywhere you look. Your world has a poisonous atmosphere," Vexatai said, checking her instruments again. "The oxygen levels would burn our lungs. The gravity would crush our bones. The radiation from your star would kill us in minutes. And yet you live there," Kelrin added. "Not just live, but thrive. You build cities and create art. You explore the most dangerous parts of your world for fun." The humans looked at each other. They were starting to understand that they might not be the helpless victims they first thought. If these aliens were afraid of Earth, then maybe humans were a lot tougher than anyone had realized. "So what happens now?" Jake asked. He was still ready to fight if needed, but these aliens seemed more scared than aggressive. Before Kelran could answer, alarms began, blaring throughout the ship. The Vorthak horde had broken through the final defense line. They would be here soon, and when they arrived, they would find something the galaxy had not seen for millions of years. They would find humans. The chamber shook as enemy fire struck the outer hull. The mystics looked at their summoned champions with desperate hope. Maybe these Deathworld monsters could save them after all. Jake Morrison smiled. It was not a friendly expression. The portal flickered and spat out more humans onto the crystal floor. Pete Collins hit the ground hard, still wearing his construction helmet and tool belt. He had been operating a crane when the dimensional rift grabbed him. Maria Santos landed. Next to him, her teacher's bag scattered across the alien floor. She had been walking to her car after staying late to grade papers. Tony Adams rolled when he hit, coming up with grease still on his hands from the engine he had been fixing. The EO mechanic looked around the chamber and whistled low. Well, this is new. The Zenthari mystics were beyond panic now. 7 humans stood in their sacred chamber, and each one looked more terrifying than the last. These creatures showed no fear, no confusion, no proper respect for beings who could tear holes in reality itself. "Make it stop," begged one of the junior mystics. "Send them back before they kill us all." Kelrin tried, but the portal was unstable. Too much power had been used too quickly. The dimensional anchor points were shifting wildly. Every time he tried to close the rift, it just opened somewhere else on the human world. Dr. Vextai watched the humans with scientific fascination mixed with primal terror. Her instruments were giving her readings that should have been impossible. These beings had internal bacteria that would wipe out most known species. Their blood carried toxins that could poison entire ecosystems. Their bodies produced acid strong enough to dissolve metal, and they seemed completely unaware of how dangerous they were. "Are you okay?" Lisa asked, approaching Vextai slowly. The doctor and her recognized signs of shock and panic in the alien. "You look like you're having trouble breathing." Vextai stumbled backward. This Deathworld monster was trying to get close to her. It was probably planning to infect her with its deadly diseases or spray her with toxic fluids. "Stay back," Vextai gasped. "Please, I know you cannot help what you are, but please stay away." Lisa stopped, confused. She looked back at Jake, who was trying to make sense of the tactical situation. The other humans had spread out instinctively, each one taking a different part of the chamber to watch. It was basic survival behavior, but to the aliens, it looked like predators claiming territory. "We're not going to hurt you," Maria said gently. She used the same voice she used to calm scared children in her classroom. "We just want to understand what's happening." "You cannot promise that," Kelrin said. "You are Deathworlders. Violence is what you do. It is how you solve problems." Danny looked offended. "Hey now, that's not fair. I spend my time saving people, not hurting them." "You fight fires," Vextai said, checking her notes. "Fire is one of the most destructive forces in the universe. Only Deathworld creatures would think they could battle such a thing and win." "Fire isn't evil," Danny explained. It's just dangerous. If you don't know how to handle it, we study it, learn from it, and use that knowledge to protect people. The aliens looked at each other in amazement. This creature spoke of studying destruction like it was a normal thing to do. What kind of world produced beings who treated deadly forces as learning opportunities? Tony had wandered over to examine the control panels. The technology was incredible, but he could see some basic principles that reminded him of Earth machines. This is pretty neat stuff. Mind if I take a look? Every alien in the room froze. The Deathworld monster was approaching their most sensitive equipment. If it touched the wrong control, it could probably blow up the entire ship. Please do not touch anything, Kelrin said carefully. The systems are very delicate. Tony paused, looking hurt. I'm not going to break it. I work on machines all the time. I know how to be careful. But careful for a human was different from careful for everyone else. Tony's idea of gentle handling would probably crush alien electronics like paper. His casual strength could snap their tools in half without even trying. Pete was examining the crystal formations that powered the ritual chamber. As a construction worker, he understood load-bearing structures and power distribution. The alien setup was impressive, but he could see some potential problems. These crystals are carrying a lot of stress, he said to Kelrin. You might want to add some support braces before they crack. Kelrin stared at him. This monster was giving engineering advice. It was looking at crystals that took Zenthari masters decades to understand, and it was suggesting improvements. The ship shook again as the Vorthak fleet got closer. Warning lights flashed throughout the chamber, and alien voices could be heard shouting orders in the corridors outside. How long do we have? Jake asked. His military mind was already working on the tactical problem. Maybe 1 hour, Kelrin admitted. The Vorthak will board our ship and kill everyone they find. Then they will eat us. Kate made a disgusted face. That's horrible. What kind of people do that? The kind that has conquered half the galaxy, Vextai said. They are the most feared warriors in known space. Nothing stops them. Nothing frightens them. Well, Jake said with a grim smile, they haven't met us yet. The aliens did not know how to react to that statement. These humans seemed to think they could fight the Vorthak horde. 7 creatures from a death world against thousands of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. It should have been laughable, but the humans did not look like they were joking. Maria had been listening to the conversation while studying the aliens' body language. Her experience with frightened students helped her understand their reactions. You're not just afraid of the Vorthak, she realized. You're afraid of us too. Of course we are, Kelrin said. You come from a Class 12 death world. Your planet would kill most of us just by existing on it. Your bodies are walking biological weapons. Your minds think violence is a solution to problems. We also think cooperation is a solution, Lisa pointed out, and communication, and learning from each other. You say that now, Vextai said, but when the fighting starts you will show your true nature. Deathworlders always do. The humans looked at each other. They were starting to understand that they had accidentally become part of something much bigger than a simple rescue mission. The entire galaxy apparently saw them as monsters. So what you're telling me, Tony said slowly, is that everyone out there thinks we're basically space bogeymen? Yes, Kelrin admitted. And they're all terrified of us because we come from Earth? Yes, but you still want us to help you fight these Vorthak guys? We are desperate. Tony grinned. Well, when you put it that way, how can we say no? The portal flickered one more time and went dark. The connection to Earth was severed. The humans were stranded in an alien galaxy where everyone feared them, facing an enemy that had never been defeated. And somehow, that just made them more determined to prove the galaxy wrong about what humans really were. Outside the ship, the first Vorthak boarding pods were already on their way. The news traveled faster than light itself through the galaxy's communication networks. Emergency broadcast went out from the Zenthari ship to every major civilization, and the message was always the same. Deathworlders had been summoned. Real, living creatures from a Class 12 nightmare planet were loose in civilized space. Admiral Corvin of the Galactic Coalition received the transmission while reviewing fleet movements in his command center. The tall, blue-skinned officer had fought in 17 wars and seen horrors that would break most minds. But when his communications officer played the message, Corvin's hands began to shake. "Impossible," he whispered. "Deathworlders are myths, stories to frighten young recruits." "The quantum signatures are confirmed, Admiral," his science officer reported. 7 distinct biological readings from a Class 12 world. They are real. Corvin's mind raced through the old legends. Deathworlders were supposedly creatures so adapted to violence and suffering that they viewed the rest of the galaxy as fragile children. They came from worlds where acid rain was common weather, where the plants tried to kill you, where the animals hunted in packs using tools and tactics. "Mobilize the entire Coalition fleet," he ordered. "Set course for the Zenthari position, maximum speed." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the crystal cities of Methar Prime, the Council of Elders sealed their world behind energy barriers and prayed to their ancestors for protection. The slug-like creatures of Gorvac Station immediately began evacuating their trade hub, loading onto ships as fast as their slow bodies could move. The insectoid hive queens of Zirion held an emergency meeting that lasted 3 minutes before they unanimously voted to retreat to the far edge of their territory. Even the warrior castes, bred specifically for combat, refused to go anywhere near the Deathworlders. But the Vorthak horde had a different reaction entirely. War Chief Brutax received the news while his boarding pods were already on their way to the Zenthari ship. His massive frame shook with what other species might have mistaken for fear, but his warriors knew better. Their leader was laughing. "Deathworlders," he growled to his second-in-command. "The legends say they are the ultimate warriors. If we defeat them, every species in the galaxy will bow before us." Aboard the Zenthari vessel, the humans were learning just how much their presence had changed everything. Dr. Vextai showed them the galactic response on her monitoring equipment. Thousands of ships were fleeing the sector while others were moving to surround them. "They're all running away," Kate observed. "Just because we're here." "Not all of them," Jake said, studying the tactical display. "That red fleet is still coming toward us, moving fast." "The Vorthak," Kelrin said with despair. "They do not fear anything, not even Deathworlders. They will see you as a challenge to overcome." Pete looked at the numbers on the screen. "How many ships do they have?" "Over 300 combat vessels," Vexte replied. 40,000 warriors. "And how many of us are there?" 7. Tony laughed so hard he had to sit down. 7 against 40,000. "I've heard of bad odds before, but this is ridiculous." "It is hopeless," Kelrin agreed. "Even Deathworlders cannot fight so many enemies." "You'd be surprised what humans can do when we put our minds to it," Maria said. She had been thinking about the problem like a teacher planning a difficult lesson. "We don't have to fight all of them at once, we just have to be smarter than they are." Lisa was examining the medical data Vexitai had collected on the humans. The information was fascinating and terrifying at the same time. According to alien standards, human blood was toxic, human saliva was acidic, and human breath carried deadly bacteria. "This is all wrong," she told Vextai. "These readings make us sound like walking chemical weapons." "Are you not?" Vextai asked. "Your blood carries iron in concentrations that would poison most species. Your digestive system processes substances that would kill us. Your skin sheds microscopic particles that could trigger fatal allergic reactions." "But we don't mean to hurt anyone," Lisa protested. "These are just normal biological functions." "Normal for a death world," Vextai said. "Your planet shaped you to be survivors. Every part of your body is designed to keep you alive in conditions that would destroy other life forms." Danny had been listening while studying the ship's layout. As a firefighter, he understood emergency procedures and evacuation routes. The Zenthari vessel was impressive, but it had weaknesses that could be exploited. "How good are these Vorthak at fighting in enclosed spaces?" he asked. "They prefer boarding actions," Kelrin replied. "They like to get close to their enemies and fight hand-to-hand. It makes the battles more personal for them." "That's good," Danny said. Close quarters fighting is something we can work with. The humans spent the next hour learning everything they could about the ship and their enemies. They asked questions that surprised the Zenthari, focusing on details that seemed unimportant to alien minds. How wide were the corridors? What materials were the walls made of? Where were the life support systems located? Jake organized the group like he would any military unit. Each person had strengths that could be used tactically. Lisa understood biology and medicine. Danny knew emergency procedures and building systems. Kate had wilderness survival skills and could track enemies. Pete understood structural engineering. Tony could work with any kind of machinery. Maria was good at reading people and predicting behavior. We're not warriors in the traditional sense, Jake told the worried aliens, but we're problem solvers, and the Vorthak just became our problem to solve. The first Vorthak boarding pods struck the hull with tremendous force. Cutting beams began slicing through the outer armor, and the sounds of alien war cries echoed through the ship. The Zenthari crew ran for the inner chambers, sealing blast doors behind them. But the humans moved toward the sounds of danger, not away from them. They had spent the last hour preparing for this moment, turning the ship into a trap designed specifically for overconfident invaders. "Showtime," Tony said, checking the improvised devices they had built from ship components and human ingenuity. Though Vorthak warriors who broke through the first barriers expected to find terrified aliens cowering in corners. Instead, they found something the galaxy had not seen in millions of years. They found humans who were ready for a fight. The battle for the Zenthari ship was about to begin, and neither side truly understood what they were up against. The Vorthak had never fought Deathworlders before, but more importantly, the humans had never fought with the galaxy watching their every move. Every species in local space was monitoring the engagement, waiting to see if the legends about Deathworlders were true. They were about to learn that sometimes the legends do not tell the whole story. Sometimes reality is far more impressive than any myth. 3 massive fleets hung in space around the Zenthari vessel like predators circling wounded prey. Admiral Corvin's coalition armada had arrived first, over 2,000 ships forming a perfect blockade pattern. The sleek vessels bristled with weapons designed to contain rather than destroy. But everyone knew they could switch to lethal force in seconds. War Chief Brutax's Vorthak fleet had pulled back after the failed boarding action, their dark red ships nursing wounds and damaged pride. For the first time in their violent history, the Vorthak had retreated from a battle. The 40 warriors, who had boarded the Zenthari ship, were gone, defeated by 7 humans in less than 20 minutes. The Zenthari's own defense fleet was the smallest of the 3, barely 50 ships that had been hastily recalled from patrol duties. High Mystic Kelrin's vessel sat in the center of it all, suddenly the most important ship in the galaxy despite being damaged and understaffed. Inside that ship, Jake Morrison stood in the communication center, looking at the holographic displays showing the 3 fleets. The other humans were positioned around the room, each one ready for whatever came next. They had spent the last 6 hours proving that humans were not the mindless monsters of legend, but they had also proven that the legends about Deathworlder combat abilities were absolutely true. "This is Admiral Corvin of the Galactic Coalition," came the voice over the communication system. His tone was formal and cold. "We demand the immediate surrender of all Deathworld entities for processing and containment. You have 1 hour to comply." Before Jake could respond, another transmission cut through the channel. "This is War Chief Brutax of the Vorthak Horde. The Deathworlders belong to us. We claim them by right of combat. Any who interfere will be destroyed. High Mystic Kelrin." Looked between the human leader and the communication panel with obvious terror. His people were caught between 3 impossible choices: surrender their guests to the Coalition, hand them over to the Vorthak, or face the combined wrath of both fleets. "What do you want to do?" Kelrin asked Jake quietly. "I cannot protect you from this many ships." Jake looked at his fellow humans. Lisa was treating minor injuries she had sustained during the boarding action. Danny was checking the modifications they had made to the ship's systems. Kate was studying star charts, looking for possible escape routes. Pete and Tony were working together to reinforce damaged sections. Maria was taking notes on everything she had observed about alien behavior patterns. They looked tired, but not defeated. More importantly, they looked determined. "I want to talk to all of them," Jake said finally. "Open a channel to every ship out there." "That is not possible," Vextai protested. "No one speaks directly to multiple fleets at once. There are protocols, procedures, diplomatic channels to follow." "The protocols don't account for humans," Jake replied. "Open the channel." Kelrin hesitated, then activated the communication array. Suddenly, Jake Morrison's voice was being broadcast to over 2 million alien warriors across 3 different fleets. Military commanders, scientists, political leaders, and soldiers all stopped what they were doing to listen to the Deathworlder speak. "My name is Jake Morrison," he began, his voice calm and steady. "I'm a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps from the planet Earth. 6 hours ago, my friends and I were pulled from our world by accident. We didn't ask to be here, and we certainly didn't ask to become the center of a galactic incident." The communication channels buzzed with translations as his words were converted into hundreds of different languages. Every species in the fleets was listening with a mixture of fascination and terror. "I've been hearing a lot about Deathworlders since we arrived," Jake continued. "About how dangerous we are, how violent, how we solve every problem with fighting. I want you to know that's not who we are." He gestured to Lisa, who had finished her medical work and was now helping Danny with repairs. "Dr. Lisa Park is a trauma surgeon. She saves lives for a living. When we fought the Vorthak borders, she spent more time treating their wounds than fighting them." The fleets listened in stunned silence. Deathworlders showing mercy to defeated enemies was not part of any legend they had heard. "Danny Rodriguez is a firefighter," Jake went on, pointing to the man who was currently rerouting power systems to improve ship efficiency. "He runs into burning buildings to rescue people. Kate Williams protects natural habitats and helps lost hikers find their way home. Pete Collins builds homes for families. Tony Adams fixes machines that other people depend on. Maria Santos teaches children." Admiral Corvin found himself leaning forward in his command chair. These were not the monsters from the old stories. These were people with jobs, with purposes beyond warfare. "We're not here to conquer anyone or destroy anything," Jake said. "We just want to understand this galaxy we found ourselves in, and maybe help where we can. The Xanthari summoned us because they were afraid and needed help, so we helped them." War Chief Brutak snarled from his command deck. "You killed 40 of my warriors." "Your warriors attacked innocent people," Jake replied without flinching. "We stopped them. That's what humans do when we see bullies picking on someone smaller. We stand up to them." The simple honesty in his voice carried across the communication network. Here was a Deathworlder admitting to violence, but also explaining the reasoning behind it. Protection of others, not conquest or cruelty. "You cannot be trusted," Admiral Corvin interjected. "Deathworlders are too dangerous to be allowed freedom in civilized space. You must be contained for the safety of all." "Based on what?" Maria asked, stepping forward. Her teacher instincts kicked in as she addressed the massive audience. "You've never met humans before today. Everything you think you know about us comes from stories and legends. But stories change over time. Details get exaggerated. Facts become myths." She looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting their image. "Yes, we come from a world that you would find hostile. Yes, we're physically tougher than most of you. But we're also curious, creative, and cooperative. We build art and music and literature. We explore space not to conquer it, but to understand it." Tony held up a device he had been working on during the conversation. "I've been studying your technology while we've been talking. This is a repair tool I built using parts from your ship and principles from human engineering. It's better than what either of our species could build alone." The demonstration was simple but profound. Here was a Deathworlder creating something useful instead of destructive, proving that human ingenuity could benefit everyone. "We're not asking you to trust us immediately," Jake said as he took control of the conversation again. "We understand that we're strangers here, and that our reputation is frightening, but we're asking for the chance to prove that the reality of humanity is better than the legends suggest." The communication channels fell silent as 3 fleets considered his words. Millions of beings were processing the idea that everything they had been taught about Deathworlders might be wrong. Then Kelrin spoke up from beside the humans. "They saved my ship and my crew," he said, his voice carrying across the network. "The Vorthak would have killed us all, but these humans stopped them, not for conquest or glory, but because it was the right thing to do." Dr. Vextai added her own testimony. "I have studied them for hours. Yes, they are physically dangerous by our standards, but they are also intelligent, ethical, and surprisingly gentle when dealing with those weaker than themselves." The standoff continued, but something had changed. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had taken a moment of pure terror and turned it into an opportunity for understanding. Now they had to wait and see if the galaxy was ready to listen. The standoff lasted 18 hours. 3 fleets watched each other while the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how the first contact with Deathworlders would end. During those tense hours, something unexpected happened. The humans kept talking. Jake Morrison and his team maintained an open communication channel with all 3 fleets, answering questions and sharing information about Earth and human civilization. They showed pictures of their cities, their art, their families. They explained human history, culture, and values with patience that surprised even their alien hosts. Admiral Corvin found himself genuinely curious about these creatures. Deathworlders who built hospitals and schools seemed like a contradiction that needed to be understood. His science teams analyzed every piece of data the humans shared, looking for deception or hidden threats, but found only honest answers to honest questions. War Chief Brutax was less interested in conversation. He spent the time planning another attack, convinced that the first boarding had failed only because of surprise. The Vorthak had fought thousands of species across the galaxy, and they had never met an enemy they could not defeat through superior violence. But the humans had been planning too. The second Vorthak assault came without warning. Brutax himself led the attack, bringing 200 of his best warriors in heavily armored boarding craft. They struck the Zenthari ship simultaneously at 6 different points, using cutting beams and explosive charges to breach the hull. The warriors who poured through the openings expected to face frightened aliens, and maybe a few humans who had gotten lucky in the first fight. Instead, they found themselves in a carefully prepared battlefield that the humans had spent 18 hours designing. The ship's corridors had been modified using human engineering principles and alien technology. What looked like normal passages were actually complex traps that channeled attackers into killing zones. The lighting had been adjusted to human preferences, giving Jake's team a significant advantage in the dim conditions. Danny Rodriguez met the first wave in the main corridor, but he was not trying to fight them directly. Instead, he led them through a series of modified blast doors while Tony Adams monitored their progress from the engineering section. When the Vorthak warriors were exactly where the humans wanted them, Pete Collins triggered the trap. Emergency foam designed for hull breaches suddenly filled the corridors, hardening around the alien warriors and trapping them in place. It was a non-lethal capture system that the humans had improvised using ship maintenance supplies, but it was devastatingly effective. Kate Williams used her tracking skills to hunt down the warriors who had taken alternate routes through the ship. She moved through the ventilation systems like a ghost, using her knowledge of alien behavior patterns to predict their movements. When she found them, she did not kill them. Instead, she used sedative drugs that Lisa Park had synthesized from medical supplies. Maria Santos coordinated the defense from the communication center, using her understanding of psychology to anticipate enemy tactics. She directed the other humans with quiet efficiency, treating the battle like a complex classroom management problem that required creative solutions. The entire engagement was being broadcast across the galaxy. Every major species watched as 7 humans systematically dismantled a force of 200 elite Vorthak warriors without killing a single one. It was a masterclass in tactical thinking, improvisation, and restraint that military academies would study for generations. War Chief Brutax found himself facing Jake Morrison in the ship's central hub. The massive alien warrior towered over the human, armed with weapons that could cut through steel and armor that had turned aside countless enemy attacks. He expected an epic battle between legends. Instead, Jake talked to him. "You don't have to do this," the human said calmly, even as Brutax raised his weapon. Your warriors are defeated but alive. You can walk away from this, and no one else has, to get hurt. Brutax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Deathworlders do not offer mercy to their enemies. You try to trick me with words. I'm not your enemy, Jake replied. I'm just someone who was in the wrong place at the wrong time, trying to make the best of a bad situation. The war chief attacked, bringing his weapon down in a strike that would have split a normal opponent in half. But Jake was not there when the blade fell. He had moved with fluid grace, using his smaller size and superior speed to avoid the attack entirely. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. Jake refused to fight, instead concentrating on staying alive while continuing to talk. He dodged attacks, deflected strikes, and avoided damage while explaining human philosophy, ethics, and values to an increasingly frustrated Vorthak warrior. We don't win by destroying our enemies, Jake said as he slipped past another attack. We win by turning our enemies into friends, or at least into people who don't want to fight us anymore. The conversation lasted for 23 minutes while the galaxy watched. Brutax grew tired while Jake seemed to have unlimited endurance. The human was not just physically superior, he was mentally prepared for a type of warfare that the Vorthak had never encountered. Finally, the war chief stopped attacking and stared at his opponent. What are you? I'm a human, Jake said simply. We come from a world where everything tries to kill you, so we learned to be tough. But we also learned that survival is easier when you work together instead of fighting each other. Brutax considered this. His species had conquered through strength and fear, but they had also made enemies of everyone they met. The humans seemed to be suggesting a different approach entirely. You defeated my warriors without killing them, the war chief said slowly. This is not how Deathworlders are supposed to behave. Maybe the stories about Deathworlders were wrong, Jake suggested. Maybe we're not the monsters you were expecting. The implications of that statement rippled across the galactic communication network. If the Deathworlder legends were inaccurate, then everything the galaxy thought it knew about the most dangerous creatures in existence needed to be reconsidered. Admiral Corvin was the first to act on this realization. Coalition fleet, stand down from combat status, he ordered. I want diplomatic teams prepared for formal first contact protocols. The war chief looked around at his captured warriors, all alive despite being completely defeated. No species in the galaxy had ever shown such restraint against the Vorthak horde. It was a demonstration of strength that was more impressive than any battlefield victory. The Vorthak withdraw, Brutax announced. We will consider what we have learned here, today. As the red ships pulled back from the standoff, Jake Morrison made one final broadcast to the galaxy. We want to go home, he said. But we also want to learn from you and maybe teach you some things about us. If you're willing to give us a chance, we think we can be friends instead of enemies. The portal that had brought the humans to the galaxy flickered back to life as Xanthari technicians worked with human engineers to stabilize the dimensional anchor points. The way home was open, but the humans no longer seemed eager to leave immediately. High Mystic Kelrin approached Jake with a formal proposal. The Galactic Coalition has voted to offer humanity associate membership status. You would be the first Deathworld species ever invited to join civilized space. Jake looked at his team. Lisa was already talking excitedly about medical exchange programs. Danny was discussing emergency response techniques with Xanthari engineers. Kate was studying star charts of unexplored regions. Pete and Tony were comparing construction methods with alien architects. Maria was taking notes for the report she would write about their incredible adventure. We'll need to talk to our governments, back home, Jake said. But I think they're going to be very interested in this opportunity. The galaxy had held its breath when the Deathworlders arrived. Now it was breathing easier, knowing that humanity offered friendship and cooperation instead of conquest and destruction. The portal stabilized, creating a permanent gateway between Earth and the stars. Humanity's first steps into galactic civilization would be taken not as conquerors or monsters, but as partners in building a better future for all species. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human exploration had begun. And across the galaxy, ancient fears gave way to new hopes as civilizations prepared to meet the species that had turned legend into reality, and made that reality far better than anyone had dared to imagine.